The space station Kepler 442 floated in the dark between stars like a giant metal flower. Its silver arms reached out in all directions, each one filled with ships from different worlds. This was neutral space, where all the alien races came. To talk and trade in peace. Captain Sarah Chun stood at the window of her ship and looked out at the station. She had never seen anything like it before. The U's Defiance was humanity's first ship to travel between stars, and Sarah was the first human to meet aliens face to face. "Captain, we're getting signals from the station," said Lieutenant Murphy from his seat at the communications desk. "They want to know what we are and where we come from." Sarah smiled. "Tell them we're humans from a planet called Earth. We come in peace." The Defiance moved slowly toward the station. Other ships made way for them, their crews probably curious about the new visitors. Sarah could see the alien ships were beautiful, with smooth curves and bright lights. They looked like they were made of crystal or energy itself. Her own ship looked very different. The Defiance was built like a fortress, with thick metal walls and big guns pointing in every direction. It was painted dark gray, the color of storm clouds. Next to the pretty alien ships, it looked rough and mean. "Captain, the station is sending a welcome message," Murphy said. "They're inviting us to dock at Arm 7. They say a group of ambassadors wants to meet us." "Good," Sarah said. "It's time humans joined the galactic community." The docking went smoothly. Sarah and her team put on their best uniforms and walked through the airlock into the station. The first thing that hit them was how different everything looked. The walls glowed with soft light, and the air smelled like flowers. Alien beings walked past them, some tall and thin, others short and round. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms approached them. Its voice was musical when it spoke. "Welcome, beings from Earth. I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Altarian Republic. We are honored to meet a new species." Sarah stepped forward. "I'm Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Defiance. Thank you for welcoming us." Kethvar led them through the station to a large round room where other aliens waited. Sarah counted at least 12 different species. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange she couldn't figure out how they moved or breathed. "Please sit," said another alien, this one covered in what looked like green scales. "I am Council Leader Vexthu. We have many questions about your people." The meeting began like all first contact meetings did. The aliens asked about Earth, about human culture, about their technology. Sarah answered as best she could, trying to make humanity sound peaceful and friendly. "Your ship," said a floating jellyfish-like creature. "It is most unusual. We have never seen such a design." "The Defiance is a battleship," Sarah said simply. "It's built for protection and defense." The room went quiet. The aliens looked at each other with expressions that Sarah couldn't read, but she could feel their concern. "A battleship?" Kethvar said slowly. "But surely you understand that warfare is forbidden in civilized space. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for over 3,000 of your Earth years." Sarah frowned. "Forbidden? How do you protect yourselves from threats?" "There are no threats," said Vexthu. "All species that join the galactic community agree to limit their weapons. No one may build anything more dangerous than basic plasma cannons. This ensures peace." "What if someone breaks the rules?" Sarah asked. "They are dealt with by the peacekeepers," said another alien. "But this rarely happens. Most conflicts are solved through discussion and trade agreements." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. These aliens had forgotten how to fight. They had become soft, relying on rules and agreements to keep them safe. On Earth, humanity had learned that peace only lasted as long as you were strong enough to defend it. Before anyone could say more, Alarms began ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and automated voices spoke in languages Sarah didn't understand. "What's happening?" she asked. Kethfer's face had gone pale blue. Zephyrian War fleet approaching. They're demanding immediate surrender of the station. War fleet? Sarah stood up. I thought you said warfare was forbidden. The Zephyrians have been difficult lately, Vextu said, his scaled hands shaking. They claim the Council has become weak and that strong species should rule over weak ones. The main screen in the room lit up, showing space around the station. Sarah counted 30 sleek ships moving toward them in perfect formation. They were beautiful, like silver arrows cutting through the darkness. How many ships does the station have for defense? Sarah asked. Defense? Kethfer looked confused. This is a peaceful station. We have no weapons. Sarah stared at him. No. Weapons? How do you plan to stop them? We will negotiate, said Vextu. We always negotiate. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the room, speaking in words that Sarah's translator turned into English. Attention. Kepler 442 station. This is Commander Vexmar of the Zephyrian Fourth Fleet. You will surrender control of this station immediately. Any ships that resist will be destroyed. You have 1 standard hour to comply. The alien ambassadors looked at each other helplessly. Sarah could see fear in their eyes. These were people who had forgotten what it meant to fight for their lives. Captain Chun, Kethfer said quietly, perhaps it would be wise for your ship to leave. The Zephyrians might not harm you if you go now. Sarah looked at the screen again. The Zephyrian ships were getting closer, their weapons already glowing with energy. She thought about her crew aboard the Defiance, waiting for her orders. She thought about Earth, millions of light years away, and all the humans who didn't even know aliens existed yet. No, she said finally, we're not running. But you cannot fight them, Vextu said. Your ship is alone against 30. It would be suicide. Sarah smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the station, she felt completely at home. This was a situation she understood. This was what the Defiance had been built for. You know, she said, walking toward the communication panel, humans have a saying. We don't start fights, but we sure know how to finish them. She opened a channel. To her ship. Lieutenant Murphy, this is the captain. Are you reading the situation out there? Yes, ma'am, came Murphy's voice. 30 hostiles approaching. They look angry. Good, Sarah said. It's been too long since we had a proper fight. Sound general quarters and prepare for battle. Show. These aliens what humans do when someone threatens innocent people. The alien ambassadors stared at her in shock. They had expected her to run or surrender. Instead, this strange human woman was actually looking forward to the fight. On the screen, the Defiance began to move away from the station, positioning itself between the Zephyrian fleet and the defenseless station. Its weapons came online, one by one, until the dark ship bristled with gun barrels and missile tubes. Captain Chun, Kethfer whispered, what are you doing? Sarah's smile grew wider. We're about to give the galaxy a lesson in human warfare. I suggest you watch carefully. You might learn something useful. The Zephyrian fleet was almost in range. Now, soon, the first shots would be fired, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Commander Vexmar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the strange alien ship move between his fleet and the station. He had seen many different ships in his years of service, but this one looked wrong somehow. Where Zephyrian ships were smooth and elegant, this one was covered in ugly bumps and sharp edges. What kind of ship is that? He asked his weapons officer. Scans show thick metal armor, Commander. Much thicker than anything we've seen before. Their weapons appear to be primitive projectile systems instead of energy cannons. Vexmar laughed. Projectiles? What kind of backward species still uses solid ammunition? Target their engines with ion dampeners. Once they're disabled, we'll board them and add their ship to our fleet. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Chun watched the enemy ships spread out into attack formation. They moved like dancers, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain," said her weapons officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez, "they're charging some kind of energy weapons. Looks like they're planning to disable us, not destroy us." "How considerate of them," Sarah said. Murphy, open a channel to the Zephyrian commander. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Sarah was looking at an alien that looked like a giant reptile with too many teeth. His yellow eyes glowed with confidence. "I am Commander Vexmar," the alien said. "Surrender your ship now, and your crew will not be harmed. We have no interest in killing primitives." Sarah leaned back in her captain's chair. "I'm Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Defiance. I have a counteroffer for you. You are in no position to make offers, human. Turn your ships around and leave this station alone," Sarah continued as if he hadn't spoken. "Do that, and I won't have to embarrass you in front of your entire fleet." Vexmar's jaw dropped open, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You dare threaten me? You have one ship against 30. "You're right," Sarah said. "This hardly seems fair. Would you like me to call for backup?" The Zephyrian commander stared at her for a long moment, then began to laugh. It was a sound like breaking glass. "You humans must be insane. Very well. If you wish to die, I will grant your wish. Attack Formation 7. Disable their engines first." The channel closed. Sarah turned to her crew, and they could see the excitement in her eyes. "All right, people. We're about to show the galaxy something new. Rodriguez, what's our ammunition count?" "Full load, Captain. Nuclear-tipped railgun rounds, conventional shells, and a full spread of quantum torpedoes." "Perfect. Murphy, I want you to record everything that happens next. The folks back on Earth are going to want to see this." On the station, the alien ambassadors watched in horror as the Zephyrian ships began their attack. Bright blue energy beams shot across space toward the human ship. "They're firing ion dampeners," Kethver said quietly. "Those will shut down all of the ship's power systems." The energy beams hit the Defiance squarely. The alien ambassadors expected to see the human ship go dark and drift helplessly. Instead, nothing happened. The ship kept moving, its lights still burning bright. "Impossible," whispered Vexthu. "Ion dampeners disable all known power systems." On the Defiance, Lieutenant Rodriguez grinned. "Their energy weapons just bounced off our Faraday cage armor, Captain. No effect whatsoever." "Good. Old human paranoia," Sarah said. "We built this ship to survive nuclear warfare and electromagnetic pulses. Their fancy energy weapons can't touch us. Time to return the favor. Target the lead ship. Load armor-piercing rounds." "Aye, Captain. Railgun loaded and ready. Fire." The Defiance's main gun roared to life. Unlike the silent energy weapons of the aliens, the human railgun made the entire ship shake when it fired. A solid metal projectile shot across space faster than the eye could follow. The round hit the Zephyrian flagship's shields. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the shields collapsed like a broken soap bubble, and the projectile punched through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. "Commander." Vexmar felt his ship shudder around him. "Report," he shouted. "Direct hit to Section 12, his damage." Control officer said, panic in his voice. "The projectile went completely through our armor. Massive hull breach. How is this possible?" "Return fire. All ships, concentrate your weapons on that primitive vessel." 30 Zephyrian ships opened fire at once. The space around the Defiance lit up with energy beams, plasma bolts, and particle cannons. It was the most firepower ever concentrated. On a single target, the human ship vanished in a ball of light and energy. The alien ambassadors on the station gasped, thinking they had just watched the destruction of humanity's first starship. When the light faded, the Defiance was still there. Its armor was glowing red-hot in places, and scorch marks covered its hull, but it was intact and still fighting. Impossible, Vexmar breathed. No ship can survive that much firepower. On the human ship, Sarah was thrown from her chair as another volley of energy weapons hit them. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the lights flickered. "Damage report," she called out. "Armor holding, Captain," Rodriguez said. "Some surface damage, but all major systems operational. We're built to take a beating." "Good. Time to show them what human engineering can really do." "Launch fighters? Fighters?" Kethver said on the station. "But their ship isn't big enough to carry fighter craft." They were wrong. Hatches opened along the Defiance's hull, and small one-person ships shot out like angry hornets. There were only 6 of them, but they moved unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. The human fighters twisted and spun through space, pulling maneuvers that should have turned their pilots into paste. They dodged between the larger alien ships, too fast and too unpredictable to target. How are they doing that? Vex Thu asked. Those acceleration forces would kill any pilot. On the station sensors, they could see the truth. The human pilots were pulling 15, 20, even 30 times the force of gravity. It should have been impossible for any living being to survive such forces. But humans weren't like other species. They had evolved on a heavy world under a harsh sun. Their bodies were dense and strong, built to endure punishment that would crush most aliens. And their fighter pilots were the best of the best, trained to push their bodies beyond all reasonable limits. The fighters reached the Zephyrian fleet and began their attack. Instead of the precise civilized warfare the aliens were used to, the humans fought like wild animals. They came from unexpected angles, hit hard, and disappeared before the enemy could respond. One fighter pilot, Lieutenant Jackson, found himself facing 3 Zephyrian ships at once. Instead of retreating, he flew straight at them, firing his weapons and shouting challenges over the radio. "Come on, you overgrown lizards. Is that the best you can do?" His fighter took hit after hit, pieces of armor flying off into space, but he kept coming. At the last second, he rolled his damaged ship between 2 of the enemy vessels and fired a pair of missiles at point-blank range. Both Zephyrian ships exploded in balls of fire and metal. Jackson's fighter was caught in the blast and spun away, smoke trailing from its engines. "Jackson, report!" Sarah called over the radio. "Still alive, Captain," came the pilot's voice, weak but defiant. "Ships beat to hell, but I can still fight. Return to base for repairs." "That's an order." "Aw, come on, Captain." "I was just getting warmed up." This was what shocked the aliens most. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were enjoying it. After thousands of years of civilized, bloodless conflicts, they were watching warriors who treated battle like a deadly sport. Back on his flagship, Commander Vexmar watched his carefully organized fleet fall apart around him. These humans fought like madmen, with no regard for proper tactics or acceptable losses. Worse, they seemed to be learning from each exchange, adapting their attacks to exploit every weakness they found. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "we've lost 6 ships, and the rest are taking heavy damage. Our energy weapons can't penetrate their armor, but their projectile weapons cut through our shields like they don't exist." "How?" Vexmar demanded. "How can primitive kinetic weapons be so effective?" He didn't understand. The aliens had spent so long perfecting energy-based warfare that they had forgotten the brutal simplicity of kinetic weapons. A chunk of metal, moving fast enough, could punch through any known defense. It was basic physics, but physics that the civilized galaxy had chosen to ignore. The Defiance fired again. This time, the target was a Zephyrian cruiser that was trying to flank them. The railgun round hit the ship's engine section and tore it completely apart. The cruiser spun helplessly in space, its crew abandoning ship. "This is impossible," Dexmar said. "We outnumber them 30-1. How are we losing?" His tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian with less experience, spoke up quietly. "Sir, perhaps we should consider retreat. These humans fight like no enemy we've ever faced." Dexmar turned on him, eyes blazing. "Retreat? We are Zephyrians. We do not retreat from primitives." But even as he said it, he could see his fleet falling apart. The humans had turned a civilized battle into a brutal brawl, and they were winning. On the station, the alien ambassadors watched in stunned silence as everything they thought they knew about warfare crumbled before their eyes. This single human ship was defeating one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. The battle had been raging for 20 minutes, and Commander Dexmar was starting to panic. Half his fleet was either destroyed or disabled, while the human ship seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the human ship is doing something new." On the main screen, they watched as the Defiance suddenly stopped moving. For a moment, Dexmar thought they had finally managed to damage it enough to disable its engines. Then the ship began to spin on its axis like a giant wheel. "What are they doing?" he demanded. His question was answered when every gun on the human ship opened fire at once. The Defiance had turned itself into a spinning fortress of death, its weapons firing in all directions. Railgun rounds, missiles, and energy beams shot out like deadly spokes from a wheel. 3 more Zephyrian ships exploded under the withering fire. The rest scattered, trying to get out of range, but the humans had planned for that too. "Sir?" The tactical officer screamed. "Something's coming out of their ship." From the Defiance's hull, dozens of small objects shot out in every direction. They looked like metal cans at first, but as they spread out through the battlefield, they began to unfold like deadly flowers. "Mines," breathed the weapons officer. "They're deploying space mines." But these weren't ordinary mines. As the Zephyrian ships tried to maneuver around them, the mines began to move, chasing the alien vessels like hunting dogs. Each one carried enough explosive power to cripple a cruiser. "They're guided," Dexmar said in horror. "How can mines be guided?" On the Defiance, Captain Shun watched her tactical display with satisfaction. "Smart mines were one of our better ideas," she told Rodriguez. "Each one has its own targeting computer and enough fuel for 30 minutes of pursuit." "The aliens don't seem to like them much, Captain. They'll like the next surprise even less. Prepare the quantum torpedoes." Rodriguez grinned. "Aye, Captain. Loading quantum torpedoes." These were humanity's newest weapon, and they had never been tested in real combat. Each torpedo carried a small quantum warhead that could tear holes in space itself. The aliens had no idea what was coming. The first torpedo launched from the Defiance like a silver dart. It moved faster than anything the Zephyrians had seen, crossing the distance to their formation in seconds. When it hit the shields of a Zephyrian destroyer, something impossible happened. The torpedo didn't explode. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, creating a tiny black hole that lasted for just a fraction of a second. The destroyer was pulled apart like taffy before the hole collapsed, leaving nothing behind but scattered atoms. "By the ancestors," Dexmar whispered. "What kind of weapons are these?" On the station, the alien ambassadors were beyond shock. They had thought they understood the limits of destruction, but the humans were showing them horrors they had never Imagine. They're tearing holes in space, Vextu said, his scaled hands shaking. How is such a thing possible? Kethver couldn't answer. His forearms hung limply at his sides as he watched the impossible battle unfold. We need to contact the Council immediately. They must know about this. But even as he spoke, he knew. It was too late. The news of this battle would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species, every government, every military leader would want to know how one human ship had defeated 30 Zephyrian vessels back in the battle. Commander Thexmar was running out of options. His fleet was in ruins, his carefully trained. Crews were panicking, and the human ship seemed completely unstoppable. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the human captain. Put her on screen, Dexmar said grimly. Captain Sean's face appeared on the view screen. She looked completely calm, as if she were discussing the weather instead of commanding a battle that was rewriting the rules of galactic warfare. Commander Thexmar, she said politely, I think it's time we had another chat. You have defeated us, Thexmar said bitterly. What more do you want? I want you to understand something important, Sarah said. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about bullies who think they can threaten innocent people just because they have more ships. She leaned forward in her chair. You came here, expecting an easy victory. You thought you could scare some defenseless aliens into surrendering their home. What you found instead was humanity. Your species is savage, Thexmar spat. You fight without honor, without mercy. Sarah's expression hardened. We fight to protect people who can't protect themselves. And we're very good at it because we've had thousands of years of practice fighting people exactly like you. She gestured to something off-screen. You see, Commander, you made a mistake. You thought that because these aliens had given up warfare, they were weak. But they're not weak. They're just civilized. There's a difference. What do you want from us? Dexmar asked. I want you to take your remaining ships and leave. Go back to your people and tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity has joined the galactic community, and we don't like bullies. Thexmar looked around his ruined bridge. More than half his fleet was gone, and the rest were barely functional. He had no choice. We will withdraw, he said through gritted teeth. Good choice, Sarah said. But, Commander, if we ever meet again and you're threatening innocent people, I won't be so merciful next time. The transmission ended. Within minutes, the surviving Zephyrian ships were jumping to hyperspace, fleeing the battlefield as fast as they're damaged. Engines could carry them. On the station, silence filled the ambassador's chamber. Finally, Kethver spoke. It's over, he said quietly. They've won. How? Vexthu asked. How did one ship defeat an entire fleet? They got their answer when Captain Sean returned to the station an hour later. She walked into the chamber still, wearing her battle uniform, looking tired but satisfied. Sorry about the mess out there, she said, gesturing toward the windows where debris from destroyed ships still drifted. We'll help with the cleanup. Captain Sean, Kethver said slowly, what we witnessed today, it changes everything. How did your people develop such devastating weapons? Sarah sat down heavily in a chair. You want to know the truth? We didn't develop them to fight aliens. We developed them to fight each other. The aliens stared at her in horror. You see, Sarah continued, humans have been at war for our entire history. Not just small conflicts, but massive wars that killed millions of people. We've fought with sticks and stones, with swords and guns, with bombs that could destroy entire cities. She looked around the room at their shocked faces. Every weapon you saw today was designed to fight other humans. We've spent thousands of years learning how to kill each other more efficiently. But why? Vexthu whispered. Why would any species do such a thing? Because that's how we learn to survive, Sarah said simply. Earth is a dangerous place. We had to become dangerous too, or we would have died out long ago. But you could have chosen peace, Cathfart protested. You could have learned to solve conflicts without violence. Sarah smiled sadly. We tried that many times. But there's always someone who thinks they can take what others have built. There's always someone who believes that might makes right, so we learn to be mightier. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at her ship. A defiance hung in space, like a dark reminder of humanity's violent past. You want to know our secret? She said, we don't fight because we love war. We fight because we love peace, and we're willing to do terrible things to protect it. The aliens didn't know what to say. They had built their civilization on the idea that violence was always wrong, that any conflict could be solved through discussion and compromise. Now they were faced with a species that had weaponized violence so effectively that they could protect the peaceful. What happens now? Keffer asked. Sarah turned back to them. Now we talk. Humanity wants to join the galactic community. We want to trade, to learn, to share what we know. But we also want to make sure that what happened here today never needs to happen again. You want to become our protectors, Vexthu said. We want to be your friends, Sarah corrected. But if someone threatens our friends, they'll have to deal with us. And as you just saw, we're very good at dealing with bullies. Outside the window, the Defiance's running lights blinked steadily in the darkness. It was a ship built for war, crewed by warriors, and armed with weapons that could tear apart fleets. But it was also humanity's gift to the galaxy. Proof that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be ready for war. The age of civilized, bloodless conflict was over. The age of human protection had begun. And across the galaxy, in government chambers and military headquarters, alien leaders were already asking the same question. How do we get humans on our side? Because they had all learned the same lesson. That day, in a universe full of predators, it was very good to have the apex predator as your friend. 3 days after the battle, Kepler 442 station buzzed with activity like never before. Ships arrived every hour, bringing diplomats, military observers, and curious scientists from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to meet the humans and understand how they had achieved the impossible. Ambassador Kethfer found himself busier than he had ever been. His office was packed with visitors, all asking the same questions. Who were these humans? How dangerous were they? And most importantly, could they be convinced to help with other problems? The human crew had been surprisingly cooperative. Captain Chun and her officers answered questions for hours each day, explaining their technology and tactics to fascinated alien researchers. But it was the psychological interviews that proved most disturbing. Dr. Nexus, the galaxy's leading expert on military psychology, sat across from Lieutenant Rodriguez in a quiet room on the station. The young human weapons officer seemed relaxed and friendly, nothing like the deadly warrior he had been during the battle. Tell me about your training, Dr. Nexus said, his tentacles moving nervously as he spoke. Rodriguez shrugged. Standard military academy education. 4 years of study, then specialized weapons training. Nothing too exciting. But the battle, Dr. Nexus pressed. You seem to enjoy the combat. Is this normal for your species? Enjoy might be too strong a word, Rodriguez said thoughtfully. But yeah, there's something satisfying about a good fight, especially when you're protecting people. Dr. Nexus made notes on his datapad. In his many years of study, he had never encountered a species that found warfare satisfying. Most civilized beings fought only when absolutely necessary, and even then with great reluctance. How do humans view death in battle? He asked. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. We don't want to die, if that's what you're asking. But we accept that it might happen. There are things worth dying for, you know. Freedom, protecting innocent people, defending your home. And killing the enemy? How do you feel about that? We don't kill because we want to, Rodriguez said seriously. We kill because sometimes it's the only way to stop someone who's trying to hurt people we care about. It's not personal. It's just necessary. Dr. Nexus felt a chill run through his body. This casual acceptance of violence was completely alien to him. In his species, the thought of intentionally ending another life was so horrifying that most of his people couldn't even discuss it. Similar interviews were taking place throughout the station. Each conversation revealed more about the human mindset, and each revelation was more disturbing than the last. In another room, Captain Chun sat with a group of Galactic Council military advisors. These were the beings responsible for peacekeeping operations across known space, and they were struggling to understand what they had witnessed. Your ship took massive damage during the battle, said General Vorth, a tall insectoid being with compound eyes. By our calculations, you should have been disabled within the first few minutes. Sarah nodded. The Defiance was hit hard, that's true, but she's built to take punishment. Human ships are designed with the assumption that they'll be damaged in battle. But how do you continue fighting with damaged systems? Asked Admiral Kelm, whose aquatic species had developed some of the galaxy's most advanced technology. Our ships become combat ineffective the moment their primary systems are compromised. Redundancy, Sarah said simply. Every critical system on my ship has at least 2 backups. When the main computers were hit, we switched to secondary systems. When those were damaged, we went to manual control. Manual control? General Vorth's mandibles clicked in confusion. How can organic beings operate complex weapon systems manually? Sarah smiled. Practice. Every member of my crew can operate. They're stationed without computer assistance if necessary. It's slower and less accurate, but it works. This concept was revolutionary to the aliens. Their ships were so automated that most crew members wouldn't know how to operate basic systems without computer help. The idea of fighting a battle using manual controls was like suggesting they fight with primitive tools. There's something else I don't understand, Admiral Kelm said. Your fighters performed maneuvers that should have killed their pilots. How is this possible? Human pilots are tough, Sarah said. We evolved on a heavy world with dangerous weather. Our bodies can handle forces that would crush most species. Plus, our pilots are trained from childhood to push their limits. From childhood? Dr. Nexus, who had joined the group, looked horrified. You train children for warfare? Not warfare specifically, Sarah clarified. But we teach them to be strong, to endure hardship, to never give up. Sports, martial arts, competitive games. By the time they join the military, they're already used to pushing their bodies beyond normal limits. The aliens exchanged worried glances. They were beginning to understand that humans weren't just better at warfare because of their technology. Their entire culture was built around concepts that the civilized galaxy had abandoned long ago. Later that day, Ambassador Kethver met privately with Captain Shun in his office. The blue-skinned diplomat poured tea from his homeworld and tried to organize his thoughts. Captain, he said finally, I need to ask you something important. Are humans planning to conquer the galaxy? Sarah nearly choked on her tea. Conquer? No, absolutely not. We came here looking for friends and trading partners, not subjects to rule over. But your military capabilities, Kethver pressed. If you wanted to, could your people take control of other worlds? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, considering the question seriously. Honestly, if humanity really wanted to conquer the galaxy, we probably could. But we don't want to. Running other people's lives sounds like a nightmare to us. Then what do you want? We want to be left alone to live our lives, Sarah said. We want to trade with peaceful species, learn about new cultures, maybe find some new places for humans to settle. But most of all, we want to make sure that bullies like the Zephyrians don't pick on people who can't defend themselves. Cathver felt some of his tension ease. So you see yourselves as protectors? In a way, yes. We've learned that peace only works when everyone agrees to be peaceful. But there's always someone who doesn't want to play by the rules. When that happens, someone needs to stop them. And you believe you're qualified for this role? Sarah gestured toward the window, where debris from the destroyed Zephyrian ships was still being cleared away. I think we just proved we're qualified. That evening, Cathver sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council on the capital world of Centauri Prime. His report was marked with the highest priority codes. Council members, he wrote, I am reporting on the human species and the battle at Kepler 442. After extensive interviews and observation, I have reached several conclusions that will impact galactic policy for generations to come. First, humans are the most militarily capable species we have ever encountered. Their technology, training, and mindset make them nearly unbeatable in combat. One human ship defeated 30 Zephyrian vessels with minimal damage. Second, humans view warfare differently than any civilized species. They accept casualties, embrace dangerous tactics, and seem to actually function better under extreme stress. They have weaponized concepts that we abandoned millennia ago. Third, and most importantly, humans appear to genuinely desire peaceful relations with other species. However, they are also committed to protecting those they see as innocent from aggressive powers. I believe we face a choice. We can welcome humans into the galactic community and benefit from their protection, or we can oppose them and likely face conquest. There is no middle ground with a species this powerful. My recommendation is immediate integration of humanity into council structures, with formal recognition of their role as peacekeepers. The alternative is too dangerous to consider. As Cathver finished his report, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed, and his communication system crackled to life. All stations, this is Control. We have a situation developing in the Altarian system. A hegemony battle fleet has attacked the peaceful Etherian colonies. The Etherians are requesting immediate assistance. Cathver looked out his window at the human ship. Captain Chun would receive this message too, and he already knew what her response would be. Within minutes, his door chimed. Captain Chun entered, still wearing her uniform, her face grim with determination. Ambassador, she said, we just received a distress call from the Etherian colonies. I'm taking my ship to help them. Captain, the hegemony fleet has over 50 ships. You cannot fight them alone. Sarah smiled, and Cathver saw something in her eyes that made him both hopeful and terrified. It was the look of a predator that had found new prey. Ambassador, she said, you haven't seen anything yet. A Defiance was just our first ship. We've got a whole fleet waiting back home, and they're going to be very interested to hear about bullies who attack peaceful farmers. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, an ambassador? You might want to contact your council. Tell them that humanity is officially volunteering for peacekeeping duties. It looks like the galaxy needs us more than we thought. As Captain Chun left to prepare for another impossible battle, Cathver realized that everything was about to change. The Age of Human. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, the galaxy was a very different place. The news of humanity's victory had spread to every corner of known space, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees fleeing various conflicts. On the Galactic Council's capital world of Centauri Prime, the massive assembly hall was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. But today, all attention was focused on a small group of beings sitting in what had previously been the visitors section. Captain Sarah Chun, now promoted to Admiral, sat at the center of the human delegation. Beside her were representatives from Earth's various nations and colonies, all wearing the same dark blue uniforms that had become famous across the galaxy. Council leader Vextu called the session to order. His scaled hands shook slightly as he spoke, something that hadn't happened before humans arrived. We are here today to formally vote on Resolution 2847, he announced. The integration of the Human Federation as a full member of the Galactic Council, with special recognition as primary peacekeeping force. The debate that followed was unlike any in the Council's 3,000-year history. Some species, like the Etherians, spoke passionately in favor of human membership. Their representatives told stories of human ships arriving just in time to save their colonies from hegemony slavers. The humans asked for nothing in return, the Etherian ambassador said, her crystalline voice ringing through the hall. They simply saw people in danger and acted to help them. This is the kind of neighbor we want in our galaxy. Other species were less enthusiastic. The Zephyrian representative, still nursing wounds from their defeat, argued against giving humans any official authority. They are too dangerous, he hissed. Their weapons can tear holes in space itself. Their ships are flying fortresses. If we give them power, who will protect us from them? Admiral Chun stood to respond. The hall fell silent as every eye turned to her. Honored council members, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, I understand your concerns. Humans are good at warfare. We're very good at it because we've had to be. She gestured to a holographic display that showed the galaxy's current political situation. Red markers indicated ongoing conflicts, while blue markers showed peaceful regions. When we arrived 6 months ago, there were 47 active conflicts in this galaxy. Billions of people living in fear, entire species facing extinction. Peaceful worlds being conquered by those with stronger fleets. The display changed, showing the current situation. Most of the red markers had turned blue. Today, there are 12 active conflicts, and human peacekeeping fleets are en route to resolve 8 of them. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it has been in centuries. She paused, looking around the hall at the assembled aliens. You ask who will protect you from us. I ask you this. Who protected the Etherians from the hegemony? Who stopped the Kraliks? Empire from enslaving the Gentle Ones? Who convinced the Warmaker clans to end their 1,000-year blood feud? A murmur ran through the assembly. Every species she had mentioned owed their current freedom to human intervention. We don't want to rule you, Admiral Chun continued. We have our own worlds to manage, our own people to care for. But we won't stand by and watch bullies hurt innocent people. That's not who we are. The Zephyrian representative stood again. And what happens when you decide we are the bullies? What happens when humanity decides the galaxy would be better off under human rule? Admiral Chun smiled, and for a moment the expression reminded everyone of Captain Chun facing down the Zephyrian fleet. Then you'd better hope you never give. U.S. a reason to think that way, she said simply. The vote, when it came, was closer than many had expected. The peaceful species supported human membership almost unanimously, while the more aggressive powers were split. In the end, humanity was accepted into the Council by a margin of just 12 votes as the session ended. Ambassador Kethfer approached. Admiral Chun, the Altarian diplomat, had become something of a human expert in the months since first contact. Congratulations, Admiral, he said. Though I suspect this is just the beginning. You're right, Sarah replied. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. She gestured to a data tablet showing reports from across the galaxy. Human peacekeeping fleets were responding to crises on dozens of worlds, while human diplomats worked to prevent conflicts before they started. The hardest part isn't winning battles, she explained. It's building something better afterward, making sure the peace lasts. And if some species refuse to accept the new order? Kethver asked. Sarah's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why Earth spent so long perfecting the art of war. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the Council's communications center. A new crisis was developing in the Outer Rim territories, where the Devourer Hive had launched a massive invasion of peaceful farming worlds. How bad is it? Sarah asked after reading the report. Bad, Kethver replied. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything in their path and move on to the next target. Sarah was already activating her communication device. Admiral Chun to Earth Command. We have a code red situation in the Outer Rim, requesting immediate deployment of the 3rd and 5th Fleets. The response came back within seconds. Roger, Admiral. Both fleets are launching now. Estimated arrival time, 72 hours. Kethver stared at her. You're sending 2 entire fleets. How many ships is that? About 400 vessels, Sarah said casually, as if discussing the weather. Should be enough to handle the Devourer. Hive, 400 ships? Kethvar's voice cracked. The entire Galactic Council Defense Force has fewer than 100 vessels. Sarah looked at him with surprise. Did you think the Defiance was our only ship? Ambassador, Earth has been building warships for centuries. We have over 2,000 vessels in active service, with more under construction every day. For the first time since meeting humans, Kethver felt genuine fear. Not fear of what humans might do to his people, but fear of what might have happened if humanity had decided to conquer instead of protect. 2,000 ships, he whispered. By the ancestors, what kind of species builds 2,000 warships? The kind that learned early on that peace is something you have to fight for, Sarah replied. The kind that knows there's always another threat out there, another bully looking for easy targets. She stood to leave, then paused and looked back. At him. Ambassador, I want you to understand something. Every human ship, every weapon, every soldier is dedicated to one simple principle, protecting those who can't protect themselves. That's not going to change. As Admiral Chun left to coordinate the response to the Devourer threat, Kethver remained in the empty assembly hall, staring at the holographic display of the galaxy dot. The peaceful blue zones were spreading. Conflicts. Ending one by one as human peacekeepers arrived to restore order. But it wasn't just the military power that was changing things. Human diplomats were teaching other species new ways to resolve conflicts. Human traders were building economic ties that made war less profitable. Human scientists were sharing technology that helped everyone. Humanity wasn't just enforcing peace. They were building it, one world at a time. A message appeared on his communication device. It was from the Etherian colonies, reporting that the Devourer Hive had retreated after encountering what they described as the human wall of steel. The invasion was over before the main human fleet had even arrived. Kethver smiled for the Chow. First time in months. The galaxy was in good hands. 3 days later, news arrived that the Devourer Hive had formally requested peace negotiations. They had never retreated from any conflict in their species' history, but facing the prospect of fighting humanity had convinced them that perhaps conquest wasn't worth the cost. The age of endless galactic warfare was ending. In its place, protected by human strength and guided by human principles, a new era of peace was beginning. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, watching for new threats, ready to defend anyone who needed protection. They had come to the stars looking for friends, and they had found a galaxy full of people who needed guardians. The humans were happy to serve in that role. After all, it was what they had always done best, standing between the innocent and those who would harm them. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what it needed.